verse or chorus, and I'll tell you which is which. Then I'll tell you that this form is called an octastitch. I'm pants at reading music, and I don't have perfect pitch. But when it comes to writing songs, I've got to scratch that itch. HFO goes live on air, we all expect a glitch. 'Cause every show I do, I know that I will find a hitch. I'm not expecting what I do to ever make me rich. I'm having fun with making music here right now with you on Twitch. Good evening. Looks a bit different in here, doesn't it? It's amazing how you can bring out the best in a cheap fisheye camera by improving the lighting. So it's really teetering on the edge of flipping through into night vision mode, which is kind of weird. So if no, it's not going to do it now. So that's good, because the show will turn into Ghostwatch if night vision kicks in. So hello to everybody. Hello to Januarius, who is first in the chat. Hello to Array of Emotions and Riako Music. Hello to Mike Tango Charlie. And welcome one and all. Riako Music says, what's Ghostwatch? Oh boy. All right. First squirrel. Ghostwatch was a programme that went out on BBC Two on Halloween many years ago, presented by Michael Parkinson, who was a chat show host. And it started off as Parky interviewing various people about aspects of the paranormal. And then strange things start to happen. And it was basically a prank / Halloween ghost story that was done by a team who didn't really do ghost stories, which meant that everybody thought it was real. And it was Mike Tango Charlie says, oh God, I saw that show. It was so well done for the time, genuinely unnerving. Yeah, it was a classic of its time. Didn't spawn quite as much of a panic as the War of the Worlds broadcast that Orson Welles did in 1938, but it did genuinely unsettle a lot of people. There were questions asked. If I remember correctly, there were questions asked in Parliament of, well, the BBC should not be misleading us like this. Oh, how things have changed. So when was this? Ghostwatch, God, early 90s? Ooh, you still remember the War of the Worlds, says Januarius. I'm not that old. The 1938 broadcast of War of the Worlds is an important plot point in my favoritist film, Buckaroo Banzai and His Adventures Across the Eighth Dimension, because Orson Welles started the broadcast and they said, this is a dramatisation of H.G. Wells's The War in the Worlds. But then they kind of just cut to a music programme, and then the guy goes, I'm hearing news reports that the large cylinders landed just outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey. And if people hadn't tuned in at the beginning of the show to understand that it was a radio play by the Mercury Players, Orson Welles' own theatre troupe, they just heard news reports and reporters being immolated by heat rays, and panic ensued in great amounts. And yeah, I've actually got a CD. You can buy CD of the recording. I'm sure it's on YouTube. It's worth listening to. It is brilliantly done because Orson Welles. And yeah, so people have always been a bit wary about sort of reality shows on live broadcasts and telling the truth and stuff like that. But as I say, how times have changed. Array of emotions. Mike Tango Charlie, due to War of the Worlds, all this Ghostwatch thing. Mike Tango Charlie says, I could be wrong, but someone who was mentally unstable took the whole thing way too seriously. Array of emotions. War of the Worlds is fabulous. They do get away from the news report format in the second half, though. But I guess people were too freaked out by that point to care. By that time, many people had already decided to flee New York City. That's how bad it was. Yes, I believe there was, if not an attempt by somebody to kill themselves or somebody actually killing themselves as a result of Ghostwatch, it has gained considerable notoriety over the year. Mike Tango Charlie says the Wikipedia entry on Ghostwatch has more details. Damn, says Ryako Music, in all capital letters. Januarius says nobody these days believes the news reports, even if they should. Quite. So yeah, lights. I was surfing the interwebs a couple of days ago, and there were a couple of these LED panels. Now, Mel and David, Array of Emotions and Ryako Music, bought a white LED panel made by Niwa, I think it was, wasn't it, Ryako? For a video shoot, what we all did many years ago. And I was like, oh, that's rather good. Maybe I should look out for things like that. Not only did I find a very, very reasonably priced double pack of coloured LED panels, it was also 10 quid off. So it's like, right, have that. And they arrived yesterday, and I've been gradually playing with them and setting them up on the camera. So Ryako Music says, we got gels. I've not got gels. I have a remote control that lets me pick from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of colours, which takes me completely down the rabbit hole. Good evening, Wobby. Looking good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the Zoom FAWM video call earlier. That was great fun and very nice to put faces to some very familiar names on that show. Array of Emotions. We have many fun colours now. You'll see them in action in Ryako Music's stream announcement photos. Brilliant. There's a lot to be said for coloured lights. And yes, I have, as I'm sure you've realised, I've gone down the orange and teal rabbit hole. If you watch cinema trailers over the last 10 years, if you look at cinema posters over the last 10 years, the fact that they've got teal on that side and orange on that side, or the other way around, those two colours, it's like everything. It's like, well, we know that the human eye responds most to colour schemes of those two colours, so we're going to use them. And I think it was the Spider-Man, the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It was like being mugged by orange and teal. It really was, because, you know, even Spider-Man's costume had unaccountably become orange and teal rather than blue and red. Array of Emotion says, also for creating depth. Yes, depth works very well. And my Tango Charlie says, gels. Reminds me of my useful attempts at being a movie lighting assistant. Those big sheets of coloured cellophane that you had to clip on with like dog clips. Yeah, now the lights just do it for you. It's ridiculous. They'll even flash, blink, do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I was quite pleased with my bargain this week. So I thought I'd launch it today. So I hope you are all doing well. I hope you have all been constructively and gainfully employed since we last talked a whole 3 days ago. And you lot I've got a bone to pick with you, right? I spent Friday morning searching online for retailers that were selling sticky toffee pudding flavoured chocolate hobnobs. Haven't found any yet, so I think I'm going to have to hit the supermarket. My Tango Charlie says, well, the television matrix is designed around the idea that green is the dominant receptive colour of the human eye. This is turning into a physics show, and we're not... What are we? We're not even 12 minutes in yet, and we've gone completely down the rabbit hole on multiple occasions. So... No, don't stop, Nick. Please don't stop. Me getting completely derailed by the much more interesting stuff that's going on in the chat is a part of the show, and has been a part of the show now for 44 weeks, believe it or not. Yeah, that's scary, isn't it? So, have you seen the big news? I got an email this morning to my Native Instruments account, because something rather interesting has happened in the music industry, right? Native Instruments have gone into partnership with Isotope. So let me get me out of the way. We're joining forces with Isotope, say Native Instruments Chief Executive Officer Konstantin Kernke and Isotope CEO Mark Ethier. In fact, their statement says, our imaginations are already running wild, thinking of the ways we can make things better and easier for you with the combination of our talent and technology, and we can't wait to see what you will create. You will create. You're under onus now. OMG, holy crap, says Ryako Music, which was pretty much my reaction as well. Yeah. It is actually a killer combination. I have a lot of Native Instruments products, and I have a lot of Isotope's products. Not too keen on Isotope going to a subscription model of retailing. They think they're going to take a leaf out of Adobe's book. And it's like, nope, not going down that route. Sorry, mate. But yeah, exciting news. So no idea how this is going to pan out, but I hope it will at least mean that Native Instruments interfaces will improve somewhat, because they're about 15 years behind the interfaces that the lovely people at Isotope put on their stuff. And Isotope stuff scales. If you drag the mouse, it gets bigger. With that, let's get on to some music, shall we? Because I've been rattling along for about 15 minutes now, and this is ostensibly a stream about music. So, have I been making music? Yeah, I have. Strangely enough, glad you asked. I've been revisiting some of the pieces of music that I wrote during February Album Writing Month, prompted by a 2014 interview with Leonard Cohen that one of my Facebook friends posted, and it was like, oh, that's good. Read through, and apart from anything else, Leonard Cohen talks about you show up, you do the work. He said, I don't have inspiration. He said, I'm not that kind of stiff. I just put my hat on and get to work. And he talked about how he would revisit old songs, or he would revisit songs that he was in the process of writing, and he would edit, and he'd rewrite, and then he'd edit again, and then he'd rewrite again. And I've got a little MP3 player. Sometimes, to amuse myself, I put headphones on and listen to what my stuff sounds like on headphones, because at the moment with the monitors in here, I do all my mixing via monitors. And listening to some of the stuff that I'd done this form, I mean, I had most definitely my best February ever, both in terms of productivity, in terms of doing 32 tracks rather than the 14 songs you're supposed to write in the 28 days of February, but also in the quality. And yeah, that I was really proud of the stuff that I'd done this year in February Album Writing Month. But having said that, when you listen to a track more than a couple of times, there are things you think, oh, that's not a good guitar sound, or yeah, that's really not doing it for me anymore. Or in certain cases, I'd just come up with a blindingly better set of lyrics for a verse. And in the past, I'd just go, oh, well, that was how the muse took me. That's how the art will remain. Not anymore. I've gone back to stuff and go, well, that was about 75%, 80% there. Shall we see if we can get it to 90? And that's what I've been doing since the last show. I hadn't planned on doing it. I just started on one and then thought, right, that one sounds a lot better. I'm going to do the other ones that have been annoying me as well. So I have been doing. So shall we go over to Ableton? And this is, in fact, I can go to presenter mood because I moved me camera thing where it is on the screen again, because I'd noticed in Thursday night's show that I'd kept dragging interfaces over so that the picture-in-picture of me was obscuring what you were supposed to be looking at. Duh. So yeah, I'm back down here in the bottom right corner again. So we'll see if that works now. And it also rather shows off the rather nice cyan flood, doesn't it? Really does. That's going to get viewers in, surely, right? Nice blue light like that. It's going to really draw people into the stream. That's the idea, isn't it? You remember our dear friend Silver Machine, who has taken part in February Album Writing Month and 5090 over many years and is a force of nature and a musical mad genius. And I have no idea how he does what he does. But that wasn't going to stop me trying. And this track is called I've Got This. And I've played it you before on the stream, but the thing that really bugged me, well, there were many things that really bugged me about this. One was that the first instrumental verse didn't really follow the 145 chord progression that I was using for the rest of the song, because it was just me making silly noises with the guitar. So instead, I've gone back and I've made even more silly noises with the guitar, but these are now following the appropriate chord progression. I also had really good fun with rhythmic edits, but I'll talk about those after I've played you the new version. So this is, he said, trying to find the mouse, this is called I've Got This.
Personal assistant. But that sounds like I'm in a zoo. I'm sorry, I don't understand that sentence. Is there something you need to do? I think you'd better put that guitar down. It's clearly far too much for you. I've got this. I've got this. Relax, I've got this. I've got this. You want to play with all the big boys. But I'm afraid there is a catch. You might tell me that you're making progress. But I think you're the bottom of the batch. You might have gone and bought some lovely shiny toys. Your guitar playing is just not up to scratch. You appear to be attempting a solo. Would you like me to take over? I've got this. I've got this. Relax, I've got this. I've got this. I am quite sure that my expression is not the slightest bit a smirk. Who cares if nobody will dig this? They're just uneducated jerks. This song can be our little secret. Let the machines do all the work. I've got this. I've got this. Relax, I've got this. I've got this. Take it on home, baby.
So that was version 2. Well, kind of about version 15, really, if I'm honest. But version 2 of I've Got This. And lots of interesting stuff in the chat. Yanuera is saying, I don't know anyone who can create masterpieces on the first try. And invoked the example of Thriller. Thriller, very famously. Produced by Quincy Jones, who was a genius and still is a genius. They would do a mix and Michael would listen to it and go, so they'd do another mix. And Michael would listen to it and go, and this went on for 83 versions of Thriller. And when it came to mix 83, Quincy thought, I can see where this is going. I'm going to have to pull a fast one. So for mix 84, he played Michael Jackson, mix number 3. And Michael went, oh, I like this. Let's use this one. So always save your prior mixes, kids. When you're using a DAW, disk storage these days it's not, minuscule costs, but it is cheap as chips. So if you're gonna do a surgery on one of your songs that you've done already, save it as a separate file. Do not just go, save, because you might change your mind about how your radical new idea for the jazz version of the song that you've spent months crafting doesn't actually work, because that bottle of red wine probably wasn't a good idea to consume before you made your creative decisions. So you need to go back to your original mix. What are you going to do if you've overwritten it? As January says, and the project files are like kilobytes. Yeah, they're tiny. The samples are what takes up the disk storage, not how big an Ableton Live set is, or a Cubase set, or a Pro Tools set, or any other DAW that you might invest in. Save each version of your file, because you might think, like Quincy Jones did, that in the end, the third version that you did was actually vastly superior to the 83rd version that you did. But, yeah, Januaris also says, yeah, but my hat's off to anyone who makes a second draft of anything. There's something, and Ryako was saying, let me just scroll back up. Ryako says, I don't know, there are some cool things that happen during your first recordings, little nuances that add another level of emotion. And this is why you should always press record before you start noodling around on your guitar or your keyboard or anything else for a solo, because stranger things have happened. You might actually pull off the perfect solo on your first attempt, or at least a good chunk of it, and then think, oh bugger, I wasn't recording. Now, at least with Ableton, when you're doing that in MIDI, you have a capture MIDI option here in Ableton, because Ableton actually listens to MIDI tracks, and if you're faffing about with MIDI, it will record it so that you can retrospectively hit the record button of what you just did, and then pull the left hand area of the take back through time to capture the stellar performance that you just did. And that feature in Live I have used almost as often as I have used the Open New Set. Really have. I use it an awful lot. It's an absolute lifesaver. And maybe the whole thing with MIDI and doing that way in MIDI is that it removes the pressure off you of having the record light on and thinking, right, I've got to really nail this, which you have to do still with recording audio. But in terms of MIDI information, you can just chill out and just noodle, and because the pressure's off, you might come up with something a bit more daring and a bit more unusual and a bit that fits perfectly, and you can just go, oh, that'll do, I'll have that. Technology, eh, kids? Absolutely superb. So yes, as you can see, this track has got very, very much busier. There are now 6 separate guitar parts. I was going to do a 7th, and I thought, no, that would be foolish. And there is a lot of editing at very, very fast intervals. And one thing that I did, based on the samples that I'd used here at the beginning, these are new, these two tracks here. I very nearly pointed, because you can see where I'm pointing at on the screen. How many weeks have I been doing this stream? So there are some interesting rhythmical things going on here that I did at this section, and because I was just belting the guitar, I was holding the right chord, yes, but the idea is that the guitar playing in this track evolves from being completely incompetent at the beginning to getting it at the end, which is why the final solo is just a single take, and it's actually just me playing a guitar solo with wah pedal and everything else. But these two tracks, if I solo them, and you can see there are sort of all sorts of skips and strange clunks in them, and they sounded interesting to me. So what I did was chop them up and if I just solo that tiny little section, I really like the effect. You get the idea? So it's all madness. It's all absolute madness, and it's insane. But I really liked that. I have also in the third verse, right? She actually says, what does she say? What do you say? Windows Navigator? What were your lines?
You want to play with all the big boys.
And at that point, it all went a bit quiet. So, me being me, it's like, oh, I'm not having gaps with no noises in. So, there's a lot more in that. But I also added an awful lot more mayhem in the first chorus. And the second chorus has ridiculous amounts of mayhem. And for instance here, so that one's naught semitones, that's naught semitones, that's naught semitones, but that one's 3 semitones up, that one should be 1 semitone down. Is it that one? Maybe it's the next one that's 3 semitones down. You're learning to cut up samples, says Ryako Music. Oh, absolutely. I always used to, because in the old days I would cut up a sample rather than using a noise gate. Yeah, believe me. So I would be that noisy on my old Shure SM58 because I'd need to whack loads of compression on it for it to actually sound convincing, because I didn't know how to use my voice back then, that it would pick up so much background noise that I would just Control E on Windows in Ableton Live and just chop the sample up. And to be honest, I've been doing the same with the vocal samples on this. You can see there is, well, each bit is basically chopped into tiny pieces because I wanted more rhythmical control over what Microsoft Navigator was doing, reading the text file that I gave it, than I could achieve just by programming pauses into Windows Navigator. But there you go. Yanuera says, that could be your artist name. Ridiculous Amounts of Mayhem. That's a good name, actually. That would actually make quite a good band. It would, although there is a Masters of Mayhem, I know, so they would probably start phoning their lawyers, which is a shame. Mayhem cubed, says Mike Tango Charlie. Oh, appropriate amount of mayhem. I like that. You need to register that as a band name like Pronto, because that is really, really good. Appropriate amount of mayhem. Quantified mayhem. A quantum of mayhem would be a really, really tiny little piece of mayhem, perhaps. That was version 2 of I've Got This. There were bits in I've Got This that I thought I could improve. Now I really, really like that track. I'm really, really proud of that track. Somebody on February Album Writing Month said, with the very twangy, clean guitar sound, he said, I didn't know Adrian Bellew did February Album Writing Month. And it was like, oh, goal achieved. Achievement unlocked, I would say that comment was. That was primarily changing the guitars. The next track that I'm going to talk you through, it was already a really, really decent track, I thought, but it's called Slave to the Algorithm. And it's all about how computers track our behaviour. And yeah, it was quite a good set of lyrics, I thought, at the time. So at the start, when I recorded it for February Album Writing Month, one verse went, your lifestyle analysed in detail knows more than you about your health. It stores your history in retail and its effects upon your wealth. And About 3 days after I'd uploaded it, I was lying in bed listening to it and suddenly realised that it's like, wouldn't it make some more sense if it stores your history in retail and when you lie about your wealth, because credit checks and stuff like that. So I came in here and wrote down the revised version of that lyric. I thought, yeah, I'll do that at some time. And then after I'd done I've got this, it's like, I should do that revised version of Slave to the Algorithm, shouldn't I? And yeah, one thing led to another, and I got really carried away, and I was doing all sorts of other stuff to it as well. So here we go. It's now loaded, and I will play you version 2 of Slave to the Algorithm.
It knows when you make each decision, your choice of airline when you fly. It tracks your movements with precision, outclasses any private eye, sees what you stream on television, the brand of cereal you buy. It scrutinizes your transactions every time you leave the house. It notes the smallest that it can push you. The exact moment you protest. And now you realize your fate's already sealed. We can't evade what our society's become. The beat we march to sounded on an algorithm's drum.
So that was Slave to the Algorithm version 2. I've called up the complete instrument that I bought on Thursday. You see, I've been putting stuff into practice. And thanks once again to Helen's evil twin, who emailed me on Wednesday, said, "You've got a VST Buzz account, haven't you? You want to check out Highbridge Element Core because it's €9 and it sounds amazing." And I did, and it was, and this is it. So there are new hits and booms and all sorts of things in this track as a result of me basically going, oh, that rises, but then it all just sort of fizzles out and goes bleh. So instead, why don't we make it go? Now that's what you call a hit. So, and there was another one that I used a bit later on. It's like you're not going to miss that, even if it's quite quiet in the mix. Mike Tango Charlie says, our computer overlords only want the best for us and to be our friends. Algorithms are good for you. Don't you want the best for yourself? Why don't you want to be friends with us? I mean them. Indeed, I for one welcome our silicon overlords. Let's have a quick scrape, shall we? Oh, that's got so much potential. Yes, I had great fun with that track. As I was saying on the chat, what I've done, the biggest change to the mix, other than the lyrics and re-recording a few bits and pieces and adding complete new synth parts to everything that's going on here, is that I am very taken with the Waves SSL Solid State Logic 4000E channel strip. So all my submixes have got the SSL 4000E channel strip. Found a few presets I liked, but then I tweaked them. And apart from anything else, it was like the guitars in the solo suddenly just go poof. It's like, wow. And that was just with dropping the SSL channel strip into the guitar mix post Neutron, which, I mean, Isotope's Neutron 3 does lovely things to a submix. It listens, uses machine learning, listens to what's going on and goes, oh, you need a bit of EQ there. Oh, and there's a really nasty peak there. Let me just put a notch in that will tame it. Yada, yada, yada. Things like that. It's like, well, I can't improve on that. Drop the SSL Pro channel strip in. And, I mean, the guitars in that solo.
It's many ways
just absolutely floored by how good that sounded. And yeah, so that has gone into my little pile of revised tracks for February album writing month. So that's 2 down. I've been quite busy because that's not the last track what I have been tweaking. So one of the other things that bugs me about using a lot of virtual instruments, especially strings, and Mel knows this all too well, is that strings can be a bit laggy. And I'd done a really nice song, and our friend from the Midlands, Pete Murphy, who I've known for many years, said very nice things about. See, Ableton's just finished loading that set, and all the processing's now changed. And yeah, my mic's on a live channel, so let me just change channels, shall we, so we don't get any strange noises. Reverb, 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 or in fact, reverb, 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 and a really irritating whistle because it's almost feeding back, so let's stop that. So yeah, Mel knows when you hit strings, you have to lead the strings because otherwise they're sort of a bit not up to speed by the time you get going where you want them to come in. And this track was mainly just piano and Spitfire Audio's intimate strings pack. Not anymore, it isn't. I did a lot of tweaking. I did a lot of adding other string patches. January says, aka the Richard Wright effect. That's interesting. I need to read up on that, but I get where you're going with that. So on this track, there's now the Spitfire Audio's epic strings as well as the intimate strings. There is the short consuelo as well as the strings long. So basically I cheated. So I'm doubling a short and a long strings because the short strings, if I solo it and play a note, comes in very fast. It goes away again very fast as well, but it gives me that initial attack that was lacking in, say, the epic strings. If we solo those, it's lovely sound, but that sound was happening at a different time to the time when I was playing the notes on my keyboard. So the mix of short and longs and shifting everything about in the MIDI slightly, it has to be said. I've got the input-output column, the delay column in Ableton enabled. Haven't really been using it because it was doing stuff. It was like, oh, I don't like that. And it really mangled it a bit too much for my liking. So I just added 3 times as many strings and it all sorts of evens out at the moment. Mike Taco Charlie says, I've got to say that Spitfire Audio is a great name for anything music related. It really is, right? The 2 guys who founded it, I've got John Thompson and Gavin Henson. Gavin's mum and dad are quite famous. They're Nicky Henson and Una Stubbs. And it was like Henson. That couldn't be, and it was. So there you go. But they're a great company. They do glorious work. I have rather a lot of their stuff at the moment. If you are watching this and you are not familiar with Spitfire Audio, download the Spitfire Audio app, which you can get, and it will run on your computer. In fact, I'll show it you, because I'm good like that. There you go. So I've got quite a few bits and pieces from Spitfire all over the shop. I use them all on a regular basis. They also, if you download the Spitfire Audio app and start running it, you'll see there's a tab up here that says Labs. Labs is a bunch of extraordinary VST instruments that work as plugins in your DAW. There's a soft piano, there are various strings, there's a rare groove piano, there's a Peel guitar, there are mandolins, there are whales, there are cranes and building sites, there's a lap steel, which is absolutely gorgeous, there's a dulcimer, which is absolutely gorgeous. They're all free. You just click and you say, yeah, I'd like that one, please, and it will download and install it for you, and then it will pop up in your DAW as something you can use. So not only that, because of course there's more, if you go to the Spitfire Audio website and look for the BBC Symphony Orchestra, well, come on, let's do it now. Okay, it says it's £49, but underneath the little add to cart button there, it says all free. And if you click on the all free button there, so that's, I'll put the, here's the URL if you haven't got it. I know most of you have anyway. But there's the URL in the chat. So you click on all free and you fill out the questionnaire that pops up. And then 2 weeks later in your Spitfire Audio app, which by now you've probably already installed it, haven't you, kids? I mean, come on, you're sharp people. You will see that you now own the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. And it is a VST instrument with strings and brass and woodwinds and percussion. You get tubular bells, you get a glockenspiel, you get timpani, you get flutes, you get bassoons, you get oboes, you get trombones, you get tenor trombones and bass trombones, you get basses, you get cello, you get violas, you get first and second violins, and they do all sorts of amazing stuff. Their download's like 250 megabytes. It's ridiculously small, and it has to be said that when I downloaded and installed it about this time last year, I had no idea it was going to change the amount and the way that I made music quite as much as it has, because it is an astonishing thing to be able to suddenly go, well, I'd like strings in this. Where it says, you get a car and you get a car. And Oprah in the house, says Riako Music. Where it says, I'd pay for it. It's totally worth $49, frankly. I got it for nothing, and I'm very pleased I got it to nothing. And thank you for Spitfire Audio. I have spent hundreds of pounds with Spitfire Audio ever since, because it's great advertising. It draws you in. It's like the first one's always free, kids. But it means that I can do stuff like this.
I'm going nowhere. And so are you. We're left in midair. just a matter of perspective. Viewed from where I'm hanging on. Moments picked at random. From our small domestic frame. Progress gets abandoned. When each day is the same. I've been getting too reflective. In mourning for a time long gone. It's just a matter of perspective. Viewed from where I'm hanging on. There'll be a day unlike the others. When we finally look down. And that's when we discover our feet are firmly on the ground. I've been getting too reflective. In mourning for a time long gone. It's just a matter of perspective. Viewed from where I'm hanging on.
So that was Hanging On version 2. I started out thinking, yeah, I'll just fix the fact that the strings come in late, and just went down the rabbit hole. The original guitar on that had the Strat, Strat 2. It's a G&L S500. And it has single coil pickups, and I was using one of the presets on my Zoom G3 multi-effects unit that picks up a nasty whine from its switched mode power supply, unfortunately. And I formed it and moved on in February, album writing month, right? That is the motto. You form it, you do not go back and fuss and go, oh, there's a horrible whiny buzzy noise in that. But there was a horrible whiny buzzy noise in that, and it was the guitar effects unit. So today I've been sitting in here with different guitars going, no, this is it, and doing about 5-10 takes on the guitar solo with each guitar and going, yeah, don't like that. Or I'd record it and go, yeah, nailed it. And then I'd play it back and it was like, ugh. So eventually I took the Godin off the wall, which was as much a surprise to the Godin as it was to me, because it was at least a semitone out of tune, and I had to play it a bit, well, quite a lot, for the strings to settle down. And yeah, I mean, it's a guitar. Well, I'll show it you, right? Because show don't tell. That's one of the rules of television, isn't it? Or novel writing. Grief, this thing's heavy. This is the heaviest guitar I own. It looks like a piece of G-plan furniture. Does it not? But so it's the closest thing that I've got to a Les Paul, I think, and I should have figured out that sort of guitar solo needs a kind of Les Paul solo-ish sound on it. It's a lovely guitar. So, and you'll also notice that it does not whine when it's playing the patches that I'm using. It's not a bad sound, is it, really? Especially with a nice delay on it, which I took off for the purposes of recording that particular piece, because as I was saying on the Thursday night stream, it's all very well having humongous amounts of reverb and echo on a guitar solo take that you think's really good, and then when you finish putting all the other tracks together on the take, it doesn't fit anymore. And you can't take it off. Well, there are a number of plugins that purport to be able to remove reverb from a track. So it's DD convolution reverb, presumably. But no single coil, sad panda, says Januarius. Oh, look more closely, Januarius. Right, slap bang in the middle. There's a single coil pickup. Not only that. Yep, it's Roland Guitar Synth enabled. So this was my first GR55 controller. But yes, I did indeed play through the humbucker, because you kind of want the humbucker noise for that solo. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing it on that, and that was like the fifth, as I say, it was the fifth guitar that I tried playing those solos through. So I was getting quite good at playing that solo by the end of it, I have to say. But yeah, I think I'll probably be playing that guitar a bit more this week. I'm not sure on what, but I like that now. And I say that as somebody who hates the sound of his own voice, and will probably always hate the sound of his own voice, no matter how many times I hear myself record it. At least I have got past the cognitive dissonance of knowing what my voice sounds like to other people compared with what I hear my voice through the bones in my head, because that's what changes your perception of your voice. is because you're hearing it as much through bone conduction as you are through the air, and sound travels at a different speed through bone than it does through the air, and also it attenuates different frequencies as opposed to how sound travels through the air. So at least now I know what I sound like, and I think knowing what I sound like is one of the reasons why I'm more confident as a singer than I used to be, because now I know what happens when I work my voice in a particular way. I can replicate that, and though I say it myself, I think I'm fairly good at singing in key. I don't tend to use the Isotope pitch correction tool. I've got a copy of Melodyne 4. I never updated to Melodyne 5 because, quite frankly, I just wasn't using it, because I've got into the point where I can usually get within, for jazz purposes, I can get within the right note, so that'll do. My Tango Charlie says, dude, you've got a good radio voice. Oh, it's this, mate. It's all about the proximity effect, which is the closer you get to certain mics, especially a dynamic mic like this, it changes the ratio of the frequencies that it picks up. It really boosts what are known as the low mids, and that's what most talk radio disc jockeys, radio people, this is why the Shure SM7B has become pretty much the industry standard, certainly in the BBC, but they normally have nice fluorescent coloured custom pop shields with the logo of the radio company stuck on them. And there is a reason I bought this mic, and that is that apart from being the industry standard vocal mic for radio, it's also the latest version of the microphone that has been used by, for instance, and we've already talked about it, Michael Jackson, who always used to record with a Shure SM7. There you go. Yanura says, you've got a gift. It might not be the gift you wanted, but you still have it, so use it. Well, I am available for voiceovers and similar audiobook work. Should anybody be looking for a reasonably priced and permanently available voiceover artist, then hello, hit me up. What was that? Hanging On, yes, which was kind of a song about the light at the end of the tunnel, possibly in terms of COVID beginning. I mean, the daily death rate in this country is just about on the 3 figures mark in recent weeks. I mean, no thanks to the government. But anyway, I am still anticipating getting my first vaccine shot this week, and that will be a load off my mind, I have to say. So if I'm all over the place on Thursday, that is why. I am planning on streaming, as usual, on my regular Thursday night show, which will be show number 44 at 7:30 GMT, 7:30 UTC this coming Thursday. But yeah, if I do not show up, then it's probably because I'm feeling a bit lurgied because of the vaccination. Ableton's finished loading because, yes, I have been even busier. Yes, I've gone back to another track. This one, if you remember, was one of me. It's called Audience Panda. So it was me getting me 80s head on. So there are, as always, SSL channel strip, because of course there is. And this song was triggered by somebody in the chat, somebody in the forums on February Album Writing Month, because there was a thread going on about what was the ideal length of a pop song. And there were various technological constraints, like a 78, I think. The maximum sound you could get on a 78 was about 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So for a long time, singles were 3 minutes 38 seconds or something of that ilk. And it's sort of gone up and down with the release of the LP and the 45-inch single. 45-inch single? The 7-inch single, which played at 45 RPM. Get your facts right, Chris. Song length apparently went up in the 80s, I guess as a result of 12-inch singles and disco remixes and all the rest, to over 4 minutes. But it's back down at 3 minutes 30 now, and the trend seems to be downwards. And bless him, somebody on form, and it wasn't you, it was not anybody in the chat here, said, well, no song over a minute is worth listening to. Really? So I wrote this. It wasn't me, but it was a Finnish person, says Januarius. You're a funny lot over there. You really are. That's all I'm going to say. This track is called Audience Panda.
Some people believe that a pop song's perfect length is 60 seconds. This song was written just for them.
So you see, audience pandering to the audience. Yeah, please yourselves. Ryako Music says, pass ag panda. That... You really can't get more passive-aggressive, can you, than criticising somebody by writing a song about them. But that's where I went. Januarius says, rather Mr. Big, isn't it? Oh, all about the gated drums. And once again, the SSL channel strip working its magic on those guitars. I mean, come on, that guitar solo in the middle, 3-part guitar harmony. I was on fire with that one. I really, really, really am rather proud of this. But the original version of the track did not have so many guitar tracks on it. In fact, it had 2. And one of them was recorded on my lovely little Squire Telecaster Custom 2 over there. And I haven't changed the strings on that for about 18 months. And it got a bit plonky. And again, listening to it on headphones really brought that out. And it was like, oh dear. So, yes, I recorded the clean rhythm guitar. And then thought, you know what, I'll double the clean rhythm guitar. And of course, once I doubled the clean rhythm guitar, I had to double the distorted rhythm guitar as well. And with the 3-part guitar harmony, that meant I have now got 7 guitar tracks on a track. Remember what I was saying on Thursday's show? 7 is quite clearly the optimal number of guitarists that you need in a live show. Yeah, just, you know, one, unless you're Alex Lifeson, one's just not going to cut it. 2, you know, Thin Lizzy and Judas Priest and a few of those guys got away with 2. Eagles with 3, 4-ish. But no, 7. And apart from anything else, 7's a prime number as well. So, you know, it's got to be 7 guitars. 1 minute song calling out 1 minute song awards goes to... Is that a Mr. Show quote? I have no idea. I have never watched an episode of Mr. Show. I don't do Sky. If it's on Sky or whatever other platform or streaming network it's available, I've never watched it. But, yeah, the thing with this song is that I was really pleased with it until somebody left me a really nice comment on form, but the throwaway line in the comment was, those lyrics are minimalist. They're almost a haiku. At which point I went, bugger. I could have written this song as a haiku, or 2 haikus. So, as you may have already spotted, it now is. Yes, I am that pretentious. I actually woke up on Friday morning with the haiku version of the lyrics in my head, because I'd been sort of dozing in and out of sleep going, no, if I wrote that song as a haiku, I could do it this way. And eventually I had to get up to write the lyrics down because they were bugging me, and I knew that if I didn't write the lyrics down when I'd got them in my head, right, important lesson here, which is why there are notebooks or spiral bound hardback notebooks or reporters' notebooks all over this house, usually next to a pencil or a biro or a fountain pen if I'm downstairs. When you've got a set of lyrics that you're really pleased with, write the buggers down before you go off and do anything else, because if you come back, you'll have forgotten them. And that was a lesson that took me several years to learn, taking part in February Album Writing Month. So, 2 things. Have pens and paper within arm's length, ideally, at any position in your house or living or abode, wherever you happen to be. And if all else fails, use the note-taking app on your phone. But always have some way of writing down those lyrics when you think of good lyrics. And the other lesson is write them down when you think of them. Do not expect to remember them the next day. I had a really good idea for a short story a couple of days ago, and I very foolishly thought, I'll remember it when I wake up. I remembered about half of it, and I managed to reconstruct the rest of it, but it probably wasn't as good as the original version that I'd had the idea when I was drifting off to sleep the night before. It's a sketch about the fact that 7 is the highest number required, says Mike Tango Charlie. 7 is, and I go to Robin and Brian. So Robin and Brian Cox do the Christmas Compendium of Reason. Sadly, last year it was cancelled last year it was cancelled because of COVID. But they did a thought reading experiment, which is basically one of the Festival of the Spoken Nerd people. I think it was probably Matt Parker who basically said, all right, Hammersmith, think of a number between 1 and 10. At which point I leant over to the person sitting next to me and said, it's going to be 7. And he basically got everybody to sit down when their number had been called out. And I think it was something like 60% of the audience had thought of 7. It was way more than the statistically expected 10%, because most people, when they're given the choice of thinking of a number between 1 and 10, they go, well, 1's too obvious and 10's too obvious, and 2's pretty obvious because it's the first even number, and then everybody's going to pick 3, so I'm not going to pick 3. And they go through this massive sort of decision tree and alight on 7 as being the number that they have thought of. And it's astonishing how much of the population will just go, well, 7. January says, I always pick 1 because I'm clever. Riaka Music says, I say 6. Mike Tango Charlie says 7 is just the perfect number, and I don't even like 7 all that much. January, if it's between 1 and 1,000, pick 1. Yeah, that's just messing with people's heads. So that was Audience Panda. So those were the revised versions of the songs that I've been working on since Thursday. And at this point, you might be saying, well, that's really good, but they're not the versions on the FAWM website. So, other than watching your YouTube channel, which, did I mention there's a YouTube channel that I own? I found out, and this had been bugging me, right, for about the last year, because I signed up for YouTube like years ago, and I had a distinct memory of customizing my channel's URL so that it was YouTube/head first only. And the more I thought about it, the more positive I was that I had done this. But nope, says Array of Emotions. And Array of Emotions is absolutely right. And I found out why this week. Array of Emotions, you need 400 subscribers, or is it 4,000? No, it's 100. They have dropped it. You need 100 subscribers now to get a custom URL. So I'm somewhere in the 60s at the moment. So if you're not following me on YouTube, it would be really, really nice if I could get back to the point that I was at about 5 years ago, where I actually had a custom URL. And I think I've still got cards that I give out that have that on, and it's non-existent. So it will get you, Mr. YouTube. I've had it for 6 years or whatever, says Januaris. Januaris has 200 followers, and he has it. Mike Tango Charlie says, my YouTube channel is recordings of me playing Gran Turismo or trying to land in Flight Simulator. Ryako Music says, I don't care. Lol. And she's probably right. But if you are watching this on YouTube, it would be really nice if you could click on the subscribe button and the little light thumbs up button as well. And if you click on subscribe, you click on the little bell and it tells you what's going on and all sorts of stuff like this. But anyway, the point that I was making before I got sidetracked once again is the fact that I thought you might actually, like to have a version of those songs in your streaming collection or your download collection or anywhere else that you store digital music in any shape or form. If you're one of those rebels who still has it on physical media, then I'm afraid I can't help you, because I'm not going to press these as CDs. But what I have done is I've put together an album. Yes, it's that time of the month again. Head First Only is releasing another album on Bandcamp. Here it is. Edit. And it's a draft. So we go down to the bottom and we click Publish. Congratulations. What I did in February is now published. So there it is. And look, see how up to date it is? Even the cover, right? Even the cover has it's got my lights on it. It's the keyboards behind me. And 58 minutes and 13 seconds of music. Pay what you want. It's just a download. You don't have to pay anything. If you do want to pay anything for it, then why not wait until the first Friday next month, when it's Bandcamp Friday once again, and Bandcamp waive their revenue share of any sales that take place on the Bandcamp platform between the hours of 8 a.m. on the Friday morning, Greenwich Mean Time, and 8. Oh, it won't be Greenwich Mean Time, will it? Oh, yes, it will. 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time and 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the Saturday. First Friday in, good Lord, it'll be April. We'll wait for Friday then. Well, I mean, please feel free to download it now. But it will already be in your collection if you do that. But it's, physics, something like that. But start off with Audience Panda. So I start off with a song that's just over a minute long and finished with a song that was just over a minute long. And this one, I'll play you off the stream so you can hear what the quality is like. And this was the last song that I wrote for February album writing month this year. And I decided that because everybody was saying that I sound like David Bowie because I've got a Bromley accent when I sing, or I sound like Leonard Cohen, or the guy from James Ray's Gang War, or there are various things. I thought, you know what, I'm going to make people say, oh, you sound like Andrew Eldritch. And the way you do that is you write a song that sounds like the Sisters of Mercy. And this is it. It's called On Reflection. So there you have it. That was On Reflection. That's the concluding track from my album What I Did in February, which is about what I did in February, strangely enough. And I've been having fun both playing with that, and don't know if anybody's noticed, but I've been a bit more active in the chat, doing things that I wouldn't normally do in the chat. And yeah, I've caved in. I've followed the herd because I bought myself a Stream Deck and I'm already loving it. So it integrates with OBS. It integrates with Zoom. It integrates with a whole bunch of other things, and I have been driving myself nuts. You got the one with the shittiest stand. I've got that one too. I didn't want one of the monster ones. Apart from anything else, I couldn't afford it. But I've been driving myself nuts with the application and using the GNU image manipulation program to make my own buttons, because that's how sad I am. And yeah, it's taken me a couple of days to get used to it, but the fact that I can now just tell you that I've got a YouTube channel, and it's just really, really good fun. See, I've got loads of shortcuts built in already. It's rather splendid. Mike Tango Charlie says, I love it when people pronounce GNU with the GE. I'm old enough to remember Flanders and Swan, who were a couple of guys who would perform in the music halls, and they would write comedy songs to the melody of popular music, or in some cases classical music. Go on YouTube. Their albums are all on YouTube. Search. There is one song which is called Ill Wind, which is based on Mozart's Horn Concerto. It's brilliant. But the reason I'm talking about Flanders and Swan is because one of their most famous songs is I'm a GNU. I'm a GNU is how they pronounced it, and an entire generation of British kids grew up pronouncing GNU as GNU because it's GNOT any other way, really, is it? Completely lost the thread now. I'm just reading the chat, which is just, yes, you kids are weird. You really are. But I love you. That's why we're all here, right? Yeah, so I bought the Stream Deck. I've been making custom buttons for myself. I've actually made the buttons so that they go red when I enabled them, and it took me ages to figure out what I was doing. Yanniwara says, what about GIF? And I know even the guy who invented the file format pronounces it GIF, but as Mike Tango Charlie says, don't even start. We are not going down that rabbit hole. But I would say that my next project with the Stream Deck is to start making animated GIFs for the buttons, which apparently you can do. Rev Emotions says, there's a person at work who pronounces it GIF, and any time she does, my brain just goes, no! Yes, you and me both. Yes, music. So, I accidentally kind of ended up releasing another album on Bandcamp. So what has that done to my discography? It's interesting because the stuff that I'm doing is pay what you want. You're just getting more and more music available for the princely sum of £39.65. You could buy my entire Bandcamp discography. And all right, some of these are singles, but there are 13 album length releases on that. So Mike Tango Charlie says, do you get more money on Friday? Sorry, more money on Friday. Yes, if somebody buys their stuff on a Bandcamp Friday, they will get about 10% more than they would do if that person had bought their music on any other day of the month. So I always make a point of buying music on Bandcamp Friday. So, and in fact, which was rather nice, and it happened today, one of the albums that I bought on last Bandcamp's Friday is Fractal Guitar 2 by Stefan Thalen, who is a friend of mine on Facebook, and well, actually, yeah, he's one of the touch guitar circle. So not only is Stefan on his album, but quite a few of my other friends on the music industry and the Chapman stick / touch guitar / war guitar / tapping instrument circle are on Stefan's album. So that arrived today. And I also, big shout out to my other friends whose album brought joy to my face when I unwrapped it this morning, which is the band Lazuli, who are based in France, and they have just brought out an album of acoustic versions of songs from their back catalogue, which is called Denude, or Naked in French. So it's all sung in French, but they're all without electrical instruments, without amplification, and as always, their music is glorious. So that's Lazuli, Lazuli. Do check them out. They're lovely, lovely guys. I love their music, and they're friends of mine. So it was nice to be able to support them. Mike Tango Charlie says, and the next is the 2nd of April. Let me just check my calendar. Yes, it is. So it's the day after April Fool's Day. How appropriate. So from 8 a.m. on the 2nd of April to 8 a.m. on Saturday the 3rd of April. If you buy money from me or from Yuha's Bandcamp channel or Riako's Bandcamp channel, we've all got Bandcamp channels. Do check them out. And if you would like to spend money on our music, that would be very much appreciated. But to refer you back to mine, once again, going to press my Steam Deck because I've got a Stream Deck and I'm going to use it. there you go. That's my Bandcamp URL for you to bookmark. I'm just so good to you people. And if we go to my Bandcamp page, the album, what I have literally just released on camera during this show, is called What I Did in February. You get 15 songs and there's over 58 minutes of music, all in high quality, well, 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz sampling, so CD quality music, which is a lot better than the versions of these tracks which are available on the February Album Writing Month website, which is basically 128 kilobits MP3 files. So you do hear a noticeable difference between the WAV files and between the MP3s on the FAWM site. And it's supporting artists. I'll buy anything from you I'll buy anything from any of you if you'll be my friend, says Yuha. That's an acceptable business approach. Mike Tango Charlie says 44 hertz, no, 44 kilohertz, mate. Won't my aged ears hear the difference? No, I'm not going to go down the psychoacoustics route. I've got albums that were 24-bit, that were mastered in 24-bit and 96 kilohertz, and I can tell the difference. And in blind tests, people can tell the difference between 44.1, between 48 kilohertz, which is kind of the standard within a computer, which is weird, and 96 kilohertz, which is, high-end audio, or even, what are the other ones? There's at least 128. I think there's 192 as well. There are some ridiculous sampling rates. Mike Tango Charlie says, I dare you to release your discography at 44 hertz. Just every song would be, wouldn't it, really? I mean, you shouldn't dare a man of science, says Januaris. I wonder if you can actually, you see, while I'm talking to you, I am now opening Audacity, and I'm going to see if I pick a recent file that I've got there and select it. Right, so let's go to presenter mode. So this is Audacity. This is still what I use for mastering my final releases to Bandcamp and the like. So I'll render it out in Ableton, and then I'll just load it into here and cut the ends off and use a little fade in and fade out algorithm. And there must be some way of reducing the sampling rate in some way. I'll tell you what, Nick, what I will do, I will consider this a challenge, right? So if you want to join me on Thursday, I will have somehow found a way to master one of my tracks at 44 hertz, and we'll see what it sounds like. All right, so if you're going to join me next Thursday at 7:30, Mike Tango Charlie says sold. That will be an interesting challenge, because I will probably end up having to download new audio manipulation tools, and come on, that's like crack to me. Any new audio plugin is very definitely my sort of thing. And Januaris just says, you have created a monster. And he's not wrong. Riako, you were talking about Chronomorph a couple of days ago, and I don't know if you're playing with it much, but it's been bugging the hell out of me. So for those of you who weren't with us when last we spoke about this ridiculous piece of software. Chronomorph is a loop producer, right? So if I just go to screen share, because I can't resize it, unfortunately, it doesn't resize. That's it. That's the interface that you get. So it uses geometry to create loops, and they're quite splendid. So if I click play, so I've got albums by the Blue Man Group that sound just like this. Ryako Music says, I've played around with it, but I suck at it and it doesn't feel intuitive to me. Well, I've been fairly deep down the rabbit hole. So if I go to track preset 3, which is empty, it basically says you need to select a VST plugin. So you click on plus and I select a VST plugin, and I'm going to use the hang drum, which I rather love, right? And I might use that plugin for a couple of other of the tracks as well. And then I might want, if let's go, we'll send this to track 3. And we'll turn this one on. I'll select, well, let's do another old favourite, which is also free, and that's DexEd, which is a free Yamaha DX7 emulation. And we'll pick, what shall we pick? We'll pick the Thunder. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I've got a nice bunch of instruments, and I can pick how many and what shape polygons they are. So it's rather sweet. Let's change that note. So the thing is, I can't figure out how to save it, because if I click save for track preset 3, right, I thought, well, that must be it, because I'm saving to track preset 3, right? Whoops, sorry, yes, my fault. There you go. So there are tooltips on a lot of it, so I can check a preset and shift click will save it. So I've got my plugins there, and if I want to save that with those plugins, I thought, well, I'll just click save. And then if I go to a different preset, it plays the same thing but with different samples. But when I go back to track preset 3, it's all gone. It's so one of the other things that I found is that where I populate many of these things with VST plugins, eventually, see, it's King Crimson. Eventually, I will just confuse it to the point where the program just goes poof and disappears completely. So it's really bugging me. So if anybody knows how I actually save those configurations of VST plugins, please let me know via email or in the comments on my YouTube channel, because I would love to know. Because I do like it. All right, the falling over without even generating an error message is a bit annoying, but I'm determined to make at least a couple of tracks with it using loops that it's generated as the basis of tracks. But at the moment, I must admit, I'm kind of struggling. There's a lot there. There's potential for that to be something really, really cool. And given your taste in music and music production, I think you'd probably get on with it with a house on fire, like a house on fire. So that's, what was it? The website I did. Google Chronomorph, Chronomorph. Reactor Music says, it's interesting, but there are things about it which are unclear. Yes, I did install it already, says Januaris. There you go. The YouTube videos are not that helpful, says Reactor Music. No, they're not, are they? They're a good sales pitch. They got me to download Gronomorph, but in terms of then finding how I could make songs the way I wanted it to sound, I'm struggling. But it's early days yet. I'll have another go. But I think for tonight it is, good Lord, I've been going 2 hours, and that's a fairly decent amount of time for a stream. But you got lots of up-to-date, shiny, freshly polished new versions of old favourites, and you saw me launch an album online, and there have been all sorts of interesting stuff going on. And come on, coloured lights, that's what it's all about apparently. And they look pretty good, I think, though I say it myself. Mike Tango Charlie says, for what it's worth, I watched your earlier episode and it reignited my interest in the whole UFO thing. Project Blue Book was my jam back in my tweens. Was that the really, really dodgy TV show that was like Chips but with flying saucers? And there would always be an absolute genuine nuts and bolts flying saucer done with special effects at the beginning of the show, and then at the end it turned out to be swamp gas. It's like, oh, Mike Tango Charlie says, no, I mean the actual book. That's, I don't think I ever bought the, was that Edward Ruppelt was the guy who did the actual book for Project Blue Book? I may have a copy lying around. I used to go around junk shops and second-hand bookstores and just go to their second-hand bookshelves, and if there was a flying saucer book, I'd just grab it. And January says swamp gas. That's my excuse for everything. Yeah, that was the I can't remember if it was Project Blue Book or the Condon report, CONDON, was a supposed University of Colorado investigation into the phenomenon that was supposed to be impartial, but unfortunately their chief administrator, who is called Abraham Lowe, if I remember correctly, had sent out had sent out a form letter to participants which basically said something along the lines of, the trick is, I suspect, to appear impartial while actually promoting the skeptical outlook. And one of the scientists involved took umbrage at the fact that this was clearly a foregone conclusion and leaked it to the press. And the whole report just went down in flames. I don't think it ever recovered its credibility from that, even if for a lot of the instances and sightings and incidents that were investigated were misinterpretations of natural phenomena or were something else entirely, who knows. But Mike Tango Charlie says, I wanted to believe, and I did. Ghosts, rubbish. Aliens, real. And as I was saying with the show on Thursday, that John Keel book basically says, yeah, it's all in and as much the same thing. It is something possibly of an extra dimensional nature that is winding people up and driving them mad. Oh, and those two books that I said I was waiting for the delivery, oh dear. One of them is written by a guy who was, well, his main business was that he was a film distributor for cinemas. Remember those, when we used to be able to go out and sit in rooms together and watch stuff? And he was not an author, but he took it upon himself to write a book which was about the cover-up about flying saucers. And he did so basically by cobbling together the story of the author of the other book, which a guy called Alfred Bender, who'd actually gone deeply down the rabbit hole in terms of the Men in Black thing. And this Gray Barker guy goes, yes, Bender was an interesting chap, but he couldn't write for toffee, so I rewrote his book. And now I've written my own book. And the pot calling the kettle black springs to mind, because he ain't a very good writer. But the stuff that is mentioned is interesting, and I say this a lot on the stream. Feed your head. Find interesting stuff that makes the brain tick over in different ways. I'm about 3/4 of the way through reading a book by Rupert Sheldrake called The Sense of Being Stared At. Rupert Sheldrake is a professor he was at Cambridge. I think he did his doctorate at Cambridge. And he came up with the idea of morphic resonance, which was the fact that things emit fields, and that's how birds know how to fly in flocks, and it's how plants know to grow in a certain way. And in the sense of being stared at, he expands his theory of morphic fields to the point where it can explain how people know when you're staring at the back of their head. Which, in the book, he does present powerful and compelling evidence that sort of behaviour is a physical reality. But when you then have to go down and invent your own branch of physics to explain what's going on, it's like, Occam's razor coming into mind. Reactor Music says, Alien Angels. Yanuera says, aren't angels supposed to be something from a different plane of existence? Mike Tango Charlie, very much in the frame of mind that I have been in reading all these books, has been, but no. When you've got to invent multiple realities or new fields of physics to explain your theory, you're probably skating on fairly thin ice. But as Mike Tango Charlie says, it's fun to imagine, but don't take it too seriously. Time for tinfoil hats. A nice snippet of information, courtesy of the quite interesting elves, is that if you coat your skull with tinfoil, it actually focuses the radiation that you're trying to protect yourself from, and makes it more effective rather than less effective. So tinfoil hats, because basically if you think about it, what you're doing, you're putting a tinfoil hat on your head, right? What shape is the inside of that tinfoil hat, bearing in mind that radio waves travel through bone and flesh, right? It's a parabolic reflector. It's like a satellite dish, and your brain is at the point where the waves congregate. In fact, your cortex is probably at about the right point for where the waves are going to be concentrated. So tinfoil hats, just Mike Tango Charlie says, stop using science to educate us. Yes, given that I'm on to tinfoil hats and the sense of being stared at, I think it's probably about time we drew this evening's proceedings to a close. So I will do so. Whatever you're doing over the following week, please obey social distancing rules. Please wear a mask if you're going out. Whatever you're doing, stay safe, stay well, stay sane, stay Wayne. And I will push the button on my Stream Deck that rolls the end credits, which means that I can do so without breaking eye contact on my camera. Isn't that absolutely amazing? I'll see you next week.